Are you ready, kids?
Aye, aye, Captain!
I can't hear you!
Aye, aye, Captain!
Oh!
Bikini Bottom, home to SpongeBob SquarePants. We all know him as this happy-go-lucky, Krabby Patty fry cook, but have you ever wondered what Bikini Bottom might look like in real life? Here's a hint. There definitely aren't Krabby Patties. In fact, a lot of the species in Bikini Bottom don't even eat the same food source. In real life, Bikini Bottom would have its own complex food web that would actually affect quite a few of the friendships we see in the show. What's a food web?
A food web is basically an outline of the feeding relationships among organisms within an ecosystem. It tells us which organisms consume which other organisms and consists of a series of interrelated trophic levels. Let's analyze how a bikini bottom food web might look in the real world.
Let's start with plankton. From a certain standpoint, plankton does actually kind of rule the world. There are billions and billions of plankton, and they're responsible for over half of the world's primary production. Plankton make up the bottom of the food web, with phytoplankton representing the primary producer. As such, plankton are autotrophic and derive their energy through photosynthesis.
Just like in Bikini Bottom, the crab and the plankton are natural enemies.
Plankton! Crabs! Plankton! Crabs!
Many crabs, like Mr. Krabs, are omnivores. They feed on phytoplankton and protozoans earlier in their life history, and eventually grow to eat larger prey like worms, clams, barnacles, and sea urchins as adults.
Now let's look at Squidward. While Squidward likes to use his tentacles for more cultured activities like contemporary dance, real-life squids use their powerful tentacles and suckers to nab prey. Squids primarily eat crustaceans like crabs and shrimp, as well as some fish. A real-life squid might not be so grumpy working at the Krusty Krab, where you could eat his boss and pretty much any of the customers that come in.
On to Patrick Star. We all know he's not the brightest star in the sea. Based on his portrayal, you might think that sea stars are pretty slow and lazy, just hanging around under rocks. But in reality, sea stars are pretty aggressive predators. They are an example of a keystone species, and play an important role in controlling the populations of other species, such as sea urchins. They play a crucial role in keeping their ecosystem in balance. Sea stars also eat plankton, scavenge on dead squid and fish, and even eat sponges. So SpongeBob and Patrick as best friends forever? Not likely.
At the top of our food web, we have a whale named Pearl. Like her, whales are very demanding,
SpongeBob, why are you talking to me?
but not quite in the same way. As a member of the Odontaceae order, the cetaceans, Pearl would be a top predator of the ecosystem. She primarily feeds on the lower carnivores like squids and crabs. As a top predator, whales require lots and lots of food. This is because about 10% of energy from the initial primary producer is transferred from trophic level to trophic level. At each level, energy is lost through excretion, respiration, maintaining homeostasis, and growth within that organism.
Finally, our favorite undersea character. While SpongeBob is known for his perfect edges and square pants, in reality he looks a little more like this. Sea sponges are typically detritivores, meaning they eat organic debris particles and microscopic life forms that they filter out of the ocean water. In nature, detritivores are indispensable to their ecosystems since their feeding helps recycle inorganic elements back into the ecosystem. In doing so, they ensure the survival of producers and thus all life. Detritivores like SpongeBob can be thought of like nature's garbage collectors. They filter out the debris so that the ecosystem doesn't suffocate under a mass of dead matter.
So there we have it, our bikini bottom food web. As you can see, it's a lot more complicated and a bit less friendly than what the show makes it out to be. But what the show does get right is that the ocean is a fascinating, beautiful place full of life and diversity.